Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, August 11, 2025, time in Texas, about 10 a.m. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. Thanks for like, subscribe, and share. And for hitting the like button, that helps my channel to grow. Some of the sources I'll use today: God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, WorldNet Daily, Hal Turner, Breitbart, KWE, USA Today, plus some of the things we'll cover. It looks like we might get a hurricane in the U.S. in about 14 days. We'll cover that. And a plan for a stimulus check, $2,000 to $5,000 out of the new tariff income. We want our money by Christmas for sure. And Maduro, more on him. More on Ghislaine Maxwell. And NATO, are they trying to sabotage the peace talks in Alaska between President Trump and President Putin? It sure looks like it. And the FBI under JB had Operation Spindle to spy on American citizens based on their political leanings. So let's get started. We have this. From a Patriot subscriber, more about the weather. The apple trees seem to be budding again, and typically apple trees bud only in the spring between April and May. So more unusual weather in the U.S. Space weather today is pretty quiet. We did have an earthquake yesterday, a 6.1. Sadly, one death has been reported, but there's been many reports of structural damage. Now we'll cover what's going on in the tropics. So we have Florida. We've got 1, 2, 3 little systems out here. It looks like both of these are going to turn away from the U.S., but we may get a large hurricane out of this other system. So we have this system, 10% chance development in 48 hours and 10% in 7 days. It's turning north. I believe it's going to turn east or go into colder waters up around Canada. The second system is the same, 10% and 10%, 48 hours and 7 days, also moving north or east away from the U.S. Now this bottom system has a 90% chance of development in 48 hours, 90% in 7 days, and it's moving west-northwest toward the U.S. It's now around the Cape Verde Islands, which is approximately 5,000 miles away from the U.S. So it's believed in about 14 days, this could approach the U.S. and produce a large hurricane. So we'll keep our eyes on that. And we have this. So yesterday I brought out a new conspiracy theory I'm putting forth that we saw a few days ago along the west coast of the U.S., around Alaska, Aleutian Islands, the Kamchatka Peninsula of Russia. We saw, actually, I believe we saw an 8.0, but it's being put forth by the USGS as an 8.8. And I put forth my conspiracy theory. Based on some reports I had, there were some ships out here operated by the CCP disguised as Venezuelan fishing ships, most likely with a scalar wave device to juice this up to this, an 8.8, which the Russian military and the U.S. military successfully and Space Force were successfully able to neutralize It did not turn into the 8.8, which would have done significant damage to Russia's Kamchatka Bay nuclear submarine base, and also done significant damage to the U.S. military installations in Alaska, down the west coast, and also in Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, Japan. So that was neutralized. The USGS is the only seismic organization in the world who came out and said it was an 8.8. It's believed they did that to put forth cautionary warnings for Alaska, the U.S., Hawaii, and so forth with regard to what would have been large tsunamis, most likely about 10 feet of water coming into all of these areas. So that was started. But this is part of my conspiracy theory that these were CCP-operated Venezuelan fishing ships. And then we saw the DOJ come out with a $10 million bounty on Maduro. And we have more on Maduro today from BREITBART. Mexican President Sheinbaum says that Mexico doesn't have any information about cartels operating in Venezuela, nor about the president of Venezuela, Maduro, being the head of the De Los Solos cartel affiliated with the Sinaloa cartel. Sheinbaum stopped just short of saying there really aren't any cartels in Mexico. So that's going on. And I left out a part of my conspiracy theory of the CCP, the scalar waves, the 8.8 avoided, and we thank God. And then the DOJ coming out with the $10 million bounty on Maduro. And another part was President Trump making a public announcement that 2 U.S. nuclear subs had been repositioned near Russia. Now, logically, a president would not announce military moves. However, associated with my conspiracy theory about the 8.8 and Maduro, I believe that President Trump's public statement of repositioning the 2 U.S. nuclear subs was a message to the deep state that the U.S. military has the back of Russia with this ongoing deep state plot against both the U.S. and Russia. So that's going on. And now we have this from WorldNet Daily. Confirms that the reason Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from Florida to Texas prison in Bryan, Texas, was because she is fully on board with cooperating with the U.S. federal government into their probe of the honeypot operation of Epstein. Now, she was moved to a minimum guard prison camp located in Bryan, Texas. That's like in central Texas. Now, based on threats against Ghislaine Maxwell in Bryan, Texas, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has sent to Bryan, Texas, to it's called the Bryan Camp, the prison. They have sent special ops and also counter-terrorism forces. Ghislaine must be getting ready to publicly release information I believe she's already privately released to the DOJ. And the special forces of the federal prison group has put special forces at the entrance and perimeter of the Bryan camp, the prison, and they've also installed counter-terrorism cyber specialists to monitor communications going in and out. So it's only a matter of time before the Epstein pot boils over. And we have this from BORZIKKMAN, that Russia hit a NATO train from Poland inside Ukraine near Dnipro. And there was, after the hit, dozens of explosions. This location was hit by Iskander missiles and drones. There was a significant radiation spike. Russia determined that what NATO had sent in was thousands of depleted uranium shells to be used in Abrams tanks, destined, believed, to be used in a hit on the border between Russia and Ukraine in an effort to sabotage the peace talks between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska this upcoming Friday. NATO and the EU want, and the deep state want war. And now we have this. So we have more information coming out, how the federal government was weaponized during the JB time. We know that JB was an actor, the real JB, most Americans believe, passed away in 2019. And once again, marker problems. Let's see. Well, I'll just give the report. Okay. So Kathleen Woynowskie ESCALERA brings this out. Under JB, there was Operation Spindle. That was the weaponization of the FBI to spy on American citizens based on their political leanings. And it does rise, some of the things that the FBI did under JB does rise to the level of treason. And we have now that President Trump has directed Kash Patel as FBI director to purge the FBI of any FBI agents involved in this spying on American citizens. So far, 12 plus senior FBI agents have been fired that were tied to this Operation Spindle under JB, plus tied to Russiagate or the J6 event, or have foreign ties. And it's believed the rogue FBI twice a month under the JB Operation Spindle would spy on American citizens to find and target right-wing political journalists also, and to discredit MAGA. Now, this was the FBI doing this. And to crush grassroots movements. So that's going on. And that there are now tribunals going on in Gitmo and also Alaska Site 14 and Guam Echo Base of these FBI agents. They're being shipped to military tribunals. And we will see in the news many public retirements. For that reason, I'll begin tuning in to the mainstream media news broadcast and see who is getting out of Dodge. And President Trump has a Project Halo, and that is a new global program to track U.S. traders, and the tracking will be done on DNA, behavioral patterns put forth by AI, and voice. So way to go, President Trump. Let's track down the traitors. And now we have this. New York Prepper also puts this information out. The U.S. military has been directed to hit the cartels in Mexico, Venezuela, and other South American areas using the Navy Air Force Plus. Way to go, President Trump. Make America great again. And President Trump has succeeded in persuading Coca-Cola to change its sweetener from corn syrup to sweet cane sugar. And we should see Coca-Cola hit the market this fall, sweetened with pure sweet cane sugar. And we have this. There are bills currently moving through Congress to put out stimulus checks to eligible Americans, ranging from $2,000 to $5,000, part of the income brought in the billions by President Trump's tariff program to eligible Americans. And eligible would mean that you have an adjusted income. In other words, you filled out your taxes, you've taken all your deductions, adjusted. And eligible would be then single individuals making $75,000 or less a year, or married couples making $150,000 per year or less. So that's going on. And we look forward to these peace talks coming up Friday. And I would not be surprised to see the deep state, as I put forth in this conspiracy theory, the 8.8, the U.S. nuke subs, Maduro plus, that was attempted by the deep state to harm both militaries of the U.S. and Russia, and also a 10-foot tsunami along the west coast of the U.S. and in Hawaii and Japan and so forth would have resulted in possibly thousands of civilian casualties. So the deep state is evil. And now they're also trying to take down Ghislaine Maxwell before her testimony can go public. And I believe when that happens, we will see many in Congress say bye-bye. This concludes my flash. I love you, and I'll see you soon.